Fair use. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing.
Before we start the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I appreciate all the support I received from you. And as always, all the information in my videos is rumors taken from the internet or the street. I'm not saying the information is fact.
Pick your mans up.
And just because people used to come through shooting us every day. And this block, words can't even explain. Can't even explain.
Yeah, man.
Little School Valley, 05 way on money.
Young Money, man. They in the building.
600 boy LA, man. LA Capone, man. Get it to him, man. OC2 boys, man. Team
Mobb number 9, man. Number 9 shooter, you hear me?
Hey, bitch, you little bitch. Yeah. What the fuck is wrong with you? Hey, I am Brick Squad. Yeah, Brick Squad, boy. What the fuck is you talking about, bro?
You have to be willing to die or go to jail for 100 years if that's the lane that you're stepping in. You have to understand that whether you're 15, 16, you got to think like a man. You know what I'm saying?
So don't be in it. Oh, you're not? Why does everybody say you're only 16 years old?
They say what they want to say.
How old
So
are
how
you?
old are you?
300.
The story of Pluto2 times Ghost Mobb. This story revolves around Pluto2 times, a figure from the set Ghost Mobb. It marks my debut video on the west side of the city, and I must confess, I've seldom encountered a more brutal conflict. While the story of King Von may rival it, the brutality within this narrative is unparalleled. Pluto2 times, renowned as one of the most feared gunmen out west, allegedly had 10 bodies under his belt. However, he was not only a shooter, he was also a rapper, with hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. I hope you will enjoy the video. I certainly did writing it. This is the story of Pluto2 times, also recognized by aliases Mr. Wipe Your Nose or The Menace. Born Derek Burns on July 23, 1997, Pluto hailed from the west side of Chicago, commonly referred to as Out West. Specifically, he was raised in the near West Side community area, encompassing districts such as Fulton River, Fulton Market, and Greektown. Geographically, this region is bounded by Grand Avenue to the north, Ashland Avenue to the west, the Eisenhower Expressway to the south, and the Chicago River to the east. Pluto grew in a territory called TNG, which descend from the name BMF, which stands for Big Money Family, or Black Walton Family. TNG are now more commonly known as Ghost Mobb, situated in the Austin neighborhood, with their territory stretching from Iowa to Thomas and Laverne to Lehman. Pluto came from an ordinary family. He had 2 sisters and 1 brother, Pt2 from Ghost Mobb. However, I'm not entirely sure if they are blood brothers, but they did grow up together, and Pluto's mother called him his son. Thule was 5 years younger and was killed a year after his older brother, Pluto. Not long after that, they also lost a sister to gang violence. Pluto also had a few cousins. One of them was Spike Lee, who passed away in the summer of 2019. Spike Lee was a high-profile member of TNG Ghost Mobb. He loved driving and was often behind the wheel when Ghost Mobb went hunting, but in the end it led to his death, which we will talk about later in the story. Pluto never talked about his father on social media or in songs, which makes me think that he was not in the picture and that he was raised by his mother. Before I go deeper into the story, I just want to give you a little explanation of symbols and expressions that you will see in the video. I will do this for you to understand the rest of the video more easily. TNG, or 4900, which are the names before it became Ghost Mob, who I will soon tell you more about, claims CVL, which stands for Conservative Vice Lords. Members often just shorten it down to C when they want to merch on it. Ghost Mob often uses the Islam emoji when communicating and posting online. The emoji in this case is used as a symbol for C, meaning CVL. A star, hat, and the Islam emoji is actually the entire symbolism of CVL, but most people only use the Islam emoji, which contains a half moon and a 5-point star. The Islamic ideology was adopted by the younger leadership in the 1990s, after the older leadership had been incarcerated by the feds in the 1980s. Ghost Mob is a set that are Die Ts, Die 4s, and many of them also claim EBK. Many of you already know what EBK is, since there are sets such as NLMB on the east side and Motown on the south that claim it and actually created it. EBK stands for Every Body Killer. Die T means Die Traveling Vice Lords, TVL. Baby T, Blood Gang, and Wicked Town are sets that Ghost Mob are Die T for, meaning they are beefing. T's, as they are called, use a Christian cross as their symbol. Die 4 means Die 4 Corner Hustlers. Ghost Mob are Die 4 for sets such as Impact Gang, Moff, Poppy Gang, LT, Black Mob, BG World, and Hood Rich Young Money. 4s, as they are called, often use the emoji for the number 4 as their symbol on the internet. The set Pluto2 became a member of is called TNG, or 4900, and stands for Troy and Gerald. Gerald and Troy are two members of 4900 that were shot and killed in 2008 and 2010 respectively. Gerald was only 16 years old when he was killed on June 30th, 2008 by unknown assailants while standing in a gangway in the 900 block of North Lamont Avenue in the Austin neighborhood. Gerald, whose real name was Gerald Perry, was hit in both his head and chest and was pronounced dead the day after due to the severity of his wounds. TNG are CVLs, which stands for Conservative Vice Lords, which is a subset of the larger Vice Lord nation that was established in the 1950s. Pluto2 was also a CVL. Before it was called 4900, it was called BMF. One or more suspects were arrested for the murder of Gerald, and I tried to request the documents, but it was denied for an unknown reason. Troy was also very young when he was shot to death 2 years later on August 8th. Troy was walking with a girl in the 4900 block of West Iowa Street when a gunman walked up and started shooting. Troy, whose real name was Troy Brown Jr., was later pronounced dead at the age of 15. The girl, who was 13 years old at the time, was also wounded in the shooting but survived. The alleged gunman in this shooting was 16-year-old Mo Case, or Mo Killa as he was called, from a set called Wicked Town, who are also located in the Austin neighborhood. A couple of weeks after the murder, Mo Killa was identified in a photo array by an eyewitness. A warrant was later issued for Mo Killa's arrest in January 2011 by Cook County Criminal Court Judge Mary Margaret Brosnahan in connection with the murder, according to court records. Mo Killa was arrested later in Wisconsin. However, one of the sources said prosecutors then interviewed the eyewitness and eventually decided not to charge Mo Killa because they felt the witness account wasn't strong enough. He was released without charges. A Cook County State's Attorney's Office spokesman confirmed that it rejected charges against Mokish due to insufficient evidence, but he declined to elaborate. 2 months later, Mo Killa was killed, in what police believe was retaliation for his involvement in the murder of Troy. On March 27, 2011, police found Mokila's body in the alley near the 5300 block of West Ferdinand Street, which is considered Wicked Town territory. He had been shot multiple times and was later pronounced dead at the age of 17. Much points to 4900 killing him. Ghost Mob was not created until 7 years after Troy was killed. Ghost Mob was a name TNG adopted after a member called Ghost, or C-Stance, was killed on September 7, 2017. Ghost, whose real name was Terrence Johnson, was found shot and killed in the 3800 block of West Flournoy. He had been shot in the arm and neck and was later pronounced dead at Stroger Hospital approximately 30 minutes after the shooting. He only reached the age of 18. Police said the shooting was believed to be related to the selling of narcotics. The territory in which Ghost was murdered is called Poppy Gang, who consist of members who claim 4CH, Four Corner Hustlers. The Four Corner Hustlers is an American street gang founded in the West Garfield Park neighborhood on the west side of Chicago in the 1960s by Walter Wheat and Freddie Gage. The reason I tell you this is because rumor has it that Poppy Gang killed Ghost because he was selling drugs in their territory. TNG and Poppy Gang had no blood feud before this murder, to my knowledge. There were tensions, fights, and slight dissing, but after Ghost got killed, it was on sight. Who from Poppy Gang actually pulled the trigger is unknown, but according to sources there were two shooters. Poppy Gang is, as I said, a set consisting of members claiming 4CH. The name Poppy Gang was adopted in late 2011 after a man by the name of James Thomas, also known as Poppy, died after being shot multiple times while standing on the sidewalk in the 800 block of South Pulaski Road. After being shot, Thomas walked to a nearby store where he fell to the ground, police said. Before Poppy Gang, it was called 3900, but also goes by the names Pt1 and 1200. The individual who allegedly killed Poppy is named Maurice Chandler and is a member from K-Town Breed who is at war with 3900 Poppy Gang. However, K-Town is divided into different subsets, and I don't know the exact one that Maurice claims, but he's a gangster disciple, and all of the subsets who claim GD are at war with Poppy Gang. It should be said, Maurice was never convicted of the murder. He was only arrested and charged. He is currently locked up in Cook County for unlawful use of a weapon. Ghost Mob, or TNG as it was called before, had a lot of members back in the days. However, in 2019 they lost a lot of members, including Pluto, and they nearly went extinct. They nearly became a ghost mob, literally. However, there are still a few of the absolute top members alive, for example Zach and Cody. Many members are also serving time. Both Bart, Rello, and Quincy are currently in jail on murder charges. However, like many other gangs, there are younger members coming up, and Ghost Mob has a few of them, which we will talk about later in the story. There are 4 rappers from Ghost Mob: Thule, who was killed in 2020, Pt1, DJ, Lonnie B, and of course Pluto2, who was killed in 2019. The allies of Ghost Mob are BBMG, who also go by the names Rich Way and 600, which should not be confused with 600 from the south side. Members of Rich Way also claim CVL, just like members of Ghost Mob TNG. Many of you probably know Rich Way 600 due to an incident that occurred in April 2021, where a 7-year-old girl was shot and killed while sitting in a car with her father at a McDonald's drive-thru. On April 18th, 2021, Richway Tilla, whose real name is Jonte Adams, picked up his daughter Jaslyn from her aunt's house. She had just texted her father that she wanted McDonald's. "I wanted to do something nice for her, so we drove there together," he said. As they drove, Jaslyn was talking about her brother's upcoming birthday. She was helping to plan his party, and she had a list of her friends she wanted to invite. That's what she was saying as we pulled into the drive-thru at Roosevelt and Kedzie. Just moments later, 3 guys in a car pulled up behind Tilla, boxing him in. Then they got out and started shooting into the car. When the shots started, Jaslyn turned to her father and called out, "Daddy?" Tilla tried to pull up over the drive-thru curb to get away, but he was stuck. Then one of the bullets hit him in his back. He was stuck and helpless. The shooters kept firing round after round. As they obliterated the car, they shot his daughter. She probably said "Daddy" like 3 times. And when I looked over the last time, she was just laying down. "Already gone," Tilla said. She had been shot 6 times. In an interview with the Chicago Sun-Times, Tilla explained the pain he went through losing his daughter. "Jaslyn taught me how to be a dad. I miss how outspoken she was, the way she would boss me around and put me in my place. She'd tell me when and where to pick her up, make sure I filled out her permission slips for field trips, and instruct me on where to be for big school events. But I wasn't all the way out. I may not have been out on the street hustling and gangbanging much anymore, but I was still making music about it. I was part of Chicago's violent and toxic drill rap culture, mocking rival gangs and their deceased members in my songs. That music put a target on my back, a target I was still wearing in the spring of 2021, when I went and picked Pinky up from her aunt's house. After her death, a lot of the public attention focused on me and whether I was to blame for my own daughter's death. That hurt. But it was nothing compared to the pain of losing Pinky. After spending 2 days in the hospital following the shooting at McDonald's, Jonte Adams attended a vigil held in memory of Jaslyn, where he called for her killers to be arrested. As the crowd gathered at the vigil, released balloons in Jaslyn's honor, dozens of prayers floated skyward. Following the vigil, Adams sought refuge in a hotel in Lombard, unable to immediately return to his former neighborhood due to mental and safety concerns. While his old friends from the neighborhood attempted to offer support, they struggled to understand how to help him grieve or cope with their own grief, and they were resistant to his pleas for them to abandon violence and prioritize their families. Despite their insistence that he refrained from discussing the murder publicly and refused to cooperate with the police, Adams remained steadfast in his determination to seek justice for his daughter. He believed it was crucial that Jaslyn's case not become another unsolved gun violence tragedy in Chicago. The FBI arrested all 3 suspects within 3 months of the murder, largely due to the reward money offered for information leading to their apprehension. All 3 suspects were arrested by the FBI within 3 months after the murder, much thanks to the money that was rewarded for information that led to an arrest. An 18-year-old man named Marion Lewis was the first to get arrested, only 4 days after the murder. Tilla had identified Otto and another suspect as members of the set Baby T Blood Gang, BTBG. Police stated the attack on Jaslyn was gang-related, potentially linked to another shooting earlier that day that wounded 2 people at a Popeyes in Humboldt Park. Police tracked Otto to a Lombard apartment through Facebook. Officers observed Otto leaving with a backpack and entering a stolen Dodge Durango. During an attempted police interception, Otto evaded capture, leading officers on a pursuit through the suburbs. Otto lost control on I-290, crashing into a concrete barrier. He approached a silver Land Rover, brandishing a handgun and ordering occupants out in an attempt to carjack. When Otto refused to surrender, an officer fired 5 shots, hitting him in the left shoulder. He was then arrested. The 2 others arrested, Demon Gowdy, also known as Glow, and Devontae Anderson, also known as Moneybag, were allegedly the shooters on the hit, while Otto was the driver. The surveillance cameras capturing the horrifying murder of the 7-year-old girl showed a silver Audi pulling up at the McDonald's parking lot at 3200 W Roosevelt and positioned itself behind Tilla's Infiniti. At that moment, Glow and Moneybag wearing hoods emerged from the Audi and began firing into the car, with one using a Draco, an AK-47 style assault weapon equipped with a banana clip. After both assailants returned to the Audi, Tilla attempted to drive forward, prompting the suspects to exit the vehicle once more and open fire. Police reported the recovery of 45 shell casings at the scene, 28 from the assault rifle and 17 more from a .40 caliber handgun. Police confirmed that the shooting had been captured on surveillance footage, asserting that Otto had not been observed exiting the Audi. However, Otto had shared a video on social media earlier that day of him driving a vehicle with interior details matching those of the Audi. Police said he was traveling with 2 individuals whose hooded sweatshirts matched those of the shooters, one of whom was seen with the Draco assault rifle allegedly used in the shooting. BTBG supposedly gained information about Tilla's whereabouts from a woman who disclosed the car he was using. They either coincidentally spotted him and followed, or obtained his location from the house. Another theory suggests that Tilla's recent PPP loan application, which made his address public, might have played a role. A few days after the murder, Dodo from Chester Mobb TVL uploaded a status on Facebook which read, "Got a drop on this flexing dude, he did his PPP." Otto reposted the status with laughing emojis. Otto, Glow, and Moneybag are still locked up in Cook County awaiting trial. They are all facing first-degree murder and attempted murder. There is a lot surrounding this murder. I just scratched the surface. If you want to learn more, I recommend you to watch all the interviews Tilla has made, including one with Steve Harvey. TNG, Ghost Mob, also has a lot of enemies, such as MNA, BTBG, Baby T Blood Gang TVL, which we just talked about, HREAM, Hood Rich Young Money, Oskino Gang, TVL and SCR, and Poppy Gang 4CH. However, the bloodiest beef, along with the war with BTBG, has been the one with a gang called LT, now more commonly known as Teen Mob. Teen Mob, or 1100, consists of members that claim 4CH and houses on Thomas and Lawler in the Austin neighborhood. LT and TNG Ghost Mob are neighbors and their territory borders each other. The name Teen Mob was adopted in 2008 after a member from LT called Teen, or 13, was shot and killed in the 900 block of North Lawler Avenue, which is considered Ghost Mob territory, and was pronounced dead at the age of 18. The gunman was actually arrested, charged, and later convicted of the murder and was sentenced to 55 years in prison. The alleged gunman is named Alan Robinson and was an alleged member of 4900, now called Ghost Mob, or TNG. Earlier that day, on December 3, 2008, Teen's friend, DeAndre, stated to police that he had been walking in the area of Iowa and Lawler when two men walked up to him, Alan Robinson and his cousin, Lemarius Robinson. Lemarius, who was also an alleged member of 4900, allegedly pointed a gun at him and pulled the trigger, but the gun did not fire. DeAndre then attempted unsuccessfully to wrestle the gun from Lemarius, but he did, however, manage the most important part, to escape and run back to his house, which was 5 houses down from the corner of Iowa and Lawler, where the teen later in the evening was murdered. Upon arriving at his residence, DeAndre promptly dialed up his friend Teen, also known as Christopher Hanford. Teen navigated to the location on foot together with friends, but encountered a group of a dozen individuals, among whom were Alan and Lemarius, both of whom had previously tried to kill DeAndre. Tensions quickly escalated into a heated dispute between Teen and Alan, culminating in a physical altercation. In the midst of the confrontation, Lemarius retrieved his previously malfunctioning firearm and cautioned onlookers against interference. Once Teen appeared to be winning the fight, the situation took a tragic turn when Alan, seizing the opportunity, wrested control of Lemarius's weapon and fatally shot Teen. Subsequently, the group dispersed, fleeing the scene in various directions. As I said, Alan was later arrested and convicted of the murder. However, he was later released in May 2022 after prosecutors dismissed the case and Alan was granted a certificate of innocence. I think it is a very interesting story, so I will now tell it in detail. On December 4th, the day after the murder, police were granted permission from superiors to conduct a buy and bust operation in an attempt to find a witness. In such a ploy, an undercover officer purchases narcotics from a street dealer who is then arrested and threatened with prosecution unless information is provided. The following day, during such an operation, police arrested Oscar Russell, another member of 4900, who had prior drug possession convictions. The police kept Russell in an interrogation room for 24 hours and threatened him with a lengthy prison sentence. The officers prepared a photographic lineup that included the photograph of 21-year-old Alan, who was believed to be a drug seller, whose territory included the location of the shooting. Russell told the officers that he knew Alan, and he gave the names of other individuals whom Russell said were present at the time of the shooting. That same day, DeAndre was brought in for questioning about the shooting. He was kept in an interrogation room for 8 hours. DeAndre was shown the photographic lineup and he said he knew Alan. However, DeAndre told the police that he did not know who had shot Teen. The following day, December 5th, 2008, after Russell and DeAndre had been released, police brought in some of the other people named by Russell as being present at the shooting. All of them denied being present, and all of them said they had no information about the shooting. 3 months later, the police arrested Russell yet again and put him in a locked interrogation room for 12 hours. After more threats to charge him with a drug crime, Russell said that Allen was the gunman. Russell was then released. That same night, DeAndre was arrested in another buy and bust. He was interrogated throughout the night and threatened with a lengthy prison sentence. Ultimately, DeAndre relented and identified Allen as the gunman. On March 3, 2009, Allen was arrested. He denied involvement in the crime. The police also arrested Allen's cousin, Lamarius. During questioning, police said Lamarius implicated Allen as the gunman. Allen was then charged with first-degree murder. In June 2011, Allen went to trial in Cook County Circuit Court. Prior to jury selection, his defense attorney said he intended to call Lamarius to testify for the defense about a letter that Lamarius had sent to Allen. In the letter, Lamarius admitted that he shot Teen and that Allen was not present at the time of the shooting. The trial judge questioned whether Lamarius had a Fifth Amendment right to refuse to testify if it would incriminate him, but no decision was made. During cross-examination, Russell said there were at least 17 or 18 people on the corner at the time of the shooting. The prosecution then said they would call Lamarius as a witness, but since he remained a suspect in the case, he had a Fifth Amendment right which he should be advised of before testifying. The judge concluded that since Lamarius could be charged as an accountable participant for supplying the gun, Lamarius should consult with an attorney first. After a recess, an assistant public defender said that Lamarius would invoke his right not to testify. The prosecution said it had spoken with Lamarius about the letter, and that Lamarius denied having written the letter, but said he might have addressed the envelope. Lamarius further said that he was not present at the shooting. Allen's defense attorney, Charles Pt1, said that Lamarius had told him the same thing. Pt1 said Lamarius claimed only to have heard about the shooting after it occurred. Pt1 said Lamarius hemmed and hawed about the letter, but ultimately denied writing it. The letter said, "What I'm saying is, I did it. You weren't even there. I could do the time, 'cause it's mine anyway." The letter also said, "I licked the page at the bottom so my DNA could be on here. If you have two, use this." Lamarius was then called to the witness stand outside the presence of the jury. He denied being at the scene of the shooting and denied he told the police that he saw the shooting. He then invoked the Fifth Amendment and refused to answer any further questions. The letter was not entered into evidence by Pt1. The prosecution then rested their case. The defense called no witnesses. On June 23, 2011, the jury convicted Allen of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 55 years in prison. In June 2014, Allen's post-conviction attorneys, Jody Garvey and Patrick Bledgen, filed a post-conviction petition seeking to overturn the conviction. The petition listed 7 witnesses whom Pt1 had failed to call at the trial. The witnesses instead pointed at Lamarius. A couple picked up Lamarius shortly after the shooting, and he appeared nervous and apparently told them that he had shot someone called 13, which is Teen's second nickname. Witnesses also had an alibi for Allen's whereabouts at the time of the murder. Allen's defense attorney failed to bring forward these witnesses in the trial. The statements made by Russell were also inconsistent. 2 of the names he said were present at the shooting were apparently incarcerated at the time. On May 2nd, Judge Brosnahan vacated the conviction and granted Robinson a new trial. The judge noted that Pt1 had refused to come to court, leaving her really in the dark as to why the alibi was not presented. The judge did note that prior to the trial, Pt1 had indicated that there was no affirmative defense. The judge said Pt1 had failed Allen by failing to admit the letter from Lamarius into evidence at the trial. The summary of the evidence: for failing to introduce evidence that Lamarius Robinson was the alternate suspect, I believe, squarely fits with ineffective assistance of counsel, Brosnahan said. There should have been, on such a significant and important issue, a pretrial motion that was litigated. On May 9th, 2022, the prosecution dismissed the case and Allen was released. On April 26, 2023, Robinson was granted a certificate of innocence, paving the way for him to seek compensation from the state of Illinois. In July 2023, Allen was awarded $268,160 in state compensation. In May 2023, Allen filed a federal civil rights lawsuit seeking compensation. The lawsuit named numerous police officers involved in the case, including McDermott and Frano. These defendants built an entirely false case against Allen based on coerced witness testimony, the lawsuit declared. Allen is now a free man after proving his innocence, and it seems like it was actually his cousin, Lamarius, who allegedly pulled the trigger. However, he never got charged. Allen was locked up for over 10 years while actually being innocent without snitching on his cousin. On August 1st in 2012, LT suffered from one of their first losses in the war against 4900 TNG. Just before starting his senior year at Lincoln Park High School, 18-year-old Quincy Simmons Jr., also known as Q Dizzle, or Q Ball, was shot to death near his West Side home in the 1100 block of North Leamington Ave, which is considered territory of LT. According to sources, he was killed by TNG 4900, but who pulled the trigger is unknown and quite difficult to find out since it happened 12 years ago. According to his father, Q Dizzle was a good kid for the most part, but ran with the friends he had known since childhood, friends drawn to gang life. However, in 2011, Q Dizzle was charged with theft, robbery, aggravated battery, and unlawful restraint, according to court records. On the night of his death, Q Dizzle had met up with some friends who were going to go sign a memorial poster for another friend who had been killed a year ago, his father said. Although the circumstances surrounding his son's death were unclear, he heard the intended target was someone else in the group. This can actually be true since Scooby Foe from Teen Mobb LT was also shot in the incident, and he was a prominent member of LT. During this incident, he was shot in the leg and recovered. Scooby Foe was later killed at the age of 24 in 2018, which we will come to later in the story. After the murder, Q Dizzle's father said the family is holding up as well as can be expected, but that it's particularly hard for him in the early hours every Wednesday. That's when I got the call, he said. Mostly it's dealing with it day by day. I have no choice because I have other kids I need to take care of. I fall apart, but I try to do it by myself. The father has also stated on his Facebook page that he would never have been able to go through the grief without Jesus Christ and the Bible. Pluto ended up on his criminal path early in life, just like many of the other infamous members I have documented. He also started just like the others, through friends at school and gang fights with other students from other areas in Austin that older brothers or members they look up to have taught them to hate. Pluto's best friends growing up were Lil Chris, Spike Lee, and Zach and Cody 2X from TNG, now Ghost Mob. Zach and Cody are exactly what they sound like. They are names taken from the sweet life of Zach and Cody. They were and still are inseparable and are two of the absolute top members of Ghost Mob, both allegedly with bodies under their belt and have served years in jail. Pluto's path to the criminal life was much like others. In the beginning it was mostly petty crime like fights, stealing bikes and whatnot, just the usual. However, it would speed up quickly to more serious crimes, toting guns, armed robberies, shootouts, and eventually murders. However, in the beginning, it was only about the money. And better believe, out west is where the money flows in Chicago. A lot of people make a lot of money over there, and don't even have to rap to buy an expensive watch or chain. In December 2012, when Pluto was only 15 years old, he was arrested and charged for a murder of a 43-year-old man named Antoine Baker. Pluto was arrested along with another teen, 16-year-old William Davis. Prosecutors said that on December 12, 2012, Antoine, Pluto, and William were at a home on the 1000 block of North LeClaire Avenue in the South Austin neighborhood at about 10:45 p.m. When the teens started arguing with Antoine over a cigarette, Pluto then punched Antoine, who stumbled onto a couch. At that point, William joined Pluto and continued to beat Antoine, who was holding up his hands to block the punches to his face. The two boys then began kicking the man who was laying on the floor. At that point, a witness tried to pull the teens off the man, who had fallen to the ground. While Antoine was on the ground, Pluto picked up a sound speaker and dropped it on Antoine's head. The teens then fled from the home as the police were summoned. About 20 minutes later, the teenagers returned to the home where they were arrested. The teens admitted punching the man, and Pluto admitted dropping a speaker on Antoine's head. Antoine was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital, where he tragically died a short time later. Pluto and William were initially charged with aggravated battery as juveniles, but the charges were later upgraded to first-degree murder, with the two being charged as adults after the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office determined the man's death was a homicide, prosecutors said. The office concluded that Antoine died from an asthma attack that was brought on by the beating. After being locked up in Cook County for 3 years, the trial began on September 8, 2015, and actually ended in William and Pluto's favor. William was found not guilty of first-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter, according to the statement and court records. William was present when another teenager, Pluto, beat Antoine and caused his death, according to the attorneys. Pluto argued, then fought with Antoine over a cigarette while William sat on a couch nearby. Prosecutors alleged that William later joined the fight and kicked Baker, and that Pluto hit Antoine in the head with a stereo speaker, while William argued he was present for the fight between Pluto and Antoine, but did not participate. However, despite Pluto getting all the blame by William, he too got off easy, because the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office testified that while the fight may have contributed to Antoine's death, the ultimate cause was an acute asthma attack. None of the injuries suffered in the fight were fatal, and Antoine also had a lethal dose of heroin in his system. Antoine had a history of repeated emergency medical treatment for heroin-induced asthma attacks leading up to his death. Because of this, Pluto was only convicted of involuntary manslaughter. William looks forward to putting this case behind him, completing his education, and joining the workforce, his lawyer said. What relationship Pluto and William had with Antoine is unknown, but much suggests that he was some kind of drug, also perhaps supplied drugs teenagers for them to sell. Regardless, Pluto was later released in late 2015. He had already been locked up for 2.5 years and was also only 15 years old, which surely helped him avoid a longer prison sentence. Once he got out, he was 18 years of age. I tried to get the homicide investigation regarding this case, but was denied due to Pluto and William being underage. The conflict with Teen Mobb LT was already raging during Pluto's imprisonment. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of the most severe conflicts I've documented. On April 21, 2019, just a day after the death of Baby C from Ghost Mob TNG, Pluto shared a Facebook post from an LT member mocking Baby C. In the repost, Pluto claimed that Ghost Mob alone had taken the lives of over 20 LT members. This ongoing war has drawn in allies from both Ghost Mob and LT. LT has also inflicted significant casualties on Ghost Mob. I would estimate that about 40 murders have direct or indirect connections to this conflict. On July 8, 2014, while Pluto was locked up, BJ from Teen Mobb LT was shot to death. BJ, whose real name was Bruce Wright, was riding his bike near the corner of North Hamlin Avenue and West Iowa Street, right outside a church, when two men approached on foot and shot him twice in the head. The gunman then fled the scene in a green Honda Odyssey van, according to police. BJ, who was only 23 years old, was transported to St. Mary of Nazareth, where he was sadly pronounced dead. One gunshot wound entered his right cheek with a correlating exit on the left forehead, and another one hit the crown of his head. When the two shooters fled the scene, they shot up another car on the way to their getaway vehicle, probably other gang members who tried to stop them. One car also tried to follow them, but lost them on the way. BJ was a documented gang member, according to police, but family and friends remembered him as a good person. BJ left behind a baby daughter. BJ seemed to have a major target on his back. Just 6 days earlier, he had been shot in the arm, and on September 2, 2013, he was shot in his left wrist during a drive-by shooting. BJ was mocked a lot by TNG, but it wasn't them who killed him. One of the killers was actually arrested for the murder, and his name was Peter Williams. Peter is a gangster disciple from the area of Ridgeway and Division and is a complete lunatic. It all started in late August 2014, a little less than 2 months after he killed BJ. According to news sites, he and another man, named David Jordan, had entered a house in Harvey, Illinois, where 2 women and 6 children were, and demanded $50,000 in cash, while Peter pressed his gun at the sister's head. The 6 terrified children in the house began to scream and cry. When Harvey police arrived, the homeowner and 2 other men in the house, who had managed to escape, warned officers about the home invasion. "They have guns, and my children are inside," Police Chief Denard Eves recalled one man saying. At that very moment, gunfire erupted, and the officer received a gunshot wound to his right forearm. What followed was nearly 21 hours of terror, according to prosecutors, who say the convicted felons repeatedly threatened the 2 remaining women and 6 children. Peter is accused of raping one of the women multiple times, then planning to use both the women in a bizarre escape plan to hold the 1-year-old babies, while the defendants walked out with them with a gun in each of the adult females' mouths, according to prosecutors. Now Peter, Ann and David stand charged with multiple counts of attempted murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault. One of the 2 Harvey police officers wounded in the hostage incident required surgery. The officer, named Darnell, survived and could leave the hospital quickly. I'm sharing this because following his arrest, Peter, now 51 years old, reached out to the police and FBI himself, claiming to possess information about the murder of Bruce Wright, also known as BJ. He expressed willingness to provide information on another individual involved in the murder in exchange for immunity. However, his efforts did not yield the desired outcome. Instead, he faced an additional charge among his existing list of offenses. Notably, the police did not solely rely on his statements, but also discovered a cigarette in the green van abandoned post-murder, with DNA matching Peter's. The laboratory results were received on March 11, 2017. The reason why I tell you this is because it was after his arrest that he himself contacted the police and the FBI and said that he had information about the murder of Bruce Wright, also known as BJ, and was prepared to snitch on the other offender in the murder to get immunity. However, the police did not bait, and all he managed to do was to get another charge on his already long list of charges. However, the police did not charge him only because of his statements, but also because they found a cigarette in the green van shortly after it was dumped after the murder, where they could match the DNA to Peter. Peter first talked to two detectives documenting his case regarding the home invasion. However, he asked if he could speak with an FBI agent in regards to several cases, including murders in Chicago, if given immunity. A special agent then went to interview him, and Peter then went on to state that he had information of a woman who was killed and stuffed in a suitcase. He then stated that he was paid by a person whose name is redacted to kill her, and she would never be found without his help. Peter then stated that the same person had paid him to kill a man on the west side of Chicago. He informed the FBI that the individual had been killed on July 8, 2014. Armed with this information, they were able to determine that the homicide of Bruce Wright, also known as BJ, had fit the description of events provided by Peter. According to an informant, BJ was targeted for a hit because he was involved in drug sales with an undisclosed individual. The Ridgeway and Division area is reportedly controlled by gangster disciples from 52nd and Sangamon, along with GD members originally from Cabrini Green. The informant shared that BJ had borrowed a gun from an undisclosed person and engaged in a shootout with a shorty at Division and Ridgeway, ultimately shooting the shorty with the borrowed gun. After this incident, BJ began selling drugs in the Hamlin and Augusta area, territory associated with a redacted gang, possibly BMF, precursor to TNG, Ghost Mob. The informant mentioned that BJ kept the handgun he borrowed, upsetting the lender, which implies that he may have stolen the gun. Additionally, the day before his murder, BJ had a physical altercation with another drug dealer on Ridgeway and Division, during which BJ pistol whipped the individual. Although specific names and gang affiliations are redacted, it appears that BJ's conflict over territory and a stolen gun contributed to the circumstances leading to the hit placed on him. What we do know is that Peter, 45 years old at the time, pulled the trigger and killed BJ. However, he was only hired to do the murder. The interesting part is who ordered the hit. It could have been BMF or CCG, which is also nearby. The gang who houses on Ridgeway and Division are Cello Block, who claim 4CH, because a lot of the valuable information in the homicide report is blacked out. A month later, Teen Mob LT lost another member, Stilo, also known as Lou Marcus. On August 24, 2014, Stilo was walking with a group of people in the 1100 block of North LeClaire, which is a street located deep inside LT territory. A gunman then got out of a vehicle, which was lurking in a nearby alley, and started to open fire at the group. Stilo, only 14 years young, was shot in his abdomen and back. After the shooting, the gunman ran back to the alley and got into his car before driving away. Stilo, whose real name was Marcus McCarty, tragically did not survive the shooting and was later pronounced dead at the hospital. A year later, in the fall of 2015, a man named Michael Anderson, also known as 24, was charged for the murder of the 14-year-old boy after witnesses had pointed him out. Several witnesses also saw 24 with a gun that afternoon. According to prosecutors, 24 had allegedly told someone he shot at the group because he thought they were rival gang members. The individuals who 24 targeted ran, and Stilo was the last one there, so he shot him. 24 later told detectives that he and others had discussed going over to that area to shoot rivals, and that he was present at the scene of the shooting. When 24 was charged, he was already in prison, serving a 15-month term for a weapons conviction. He has several other prior convictions, including drug possession, possession of a stolen vehicle, and attempted aggravated robbery. Michael, or 24 as he is called, is a member of 700, but not the 700 as in BBMG or Richway 600. He is a part of the set who call themselves L-Town and who are close allies of Huron Mob. Both sets are located close to Ghost Mob. L-Town are Black P-Stones and Huron Mob are both CVL and TVL. A year later, it was time again. LT lost another member. On August 15, 2015, Duty 4 from Teen Mob LT was shot to death while driving in the East Garfield Park neighborhood. Duty, whose real name was Casanova West, was driving near the intersection of Carroll and Central Park Avenues about 2:05 a.m. when he was shot multiple times in the chest, back, and arm, police said. The vehicle he was driving then crashed into a pole in the 300 block of North Central Park, which is close to the territory of Richway 600. Duty was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 2:37 a.m., according to the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. According to the information I have received, it was Richway who was behind the murder. However, who the shooter was is unknown. One or more was arrested for the murder, and I tried to request the documents, but have not received any. A week later, it was TNG's turn to lose a member, Mikey, who was from the older generation, 4900 BMF. Mikey, 42 years old, was driving in the 1000 block of North Lamon Ghost Mob territory when someone opened fire, striking him repeatedly according to police and the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. He then crashed into a parked car. Mikey, whose real name was James Duthard, was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The ones who killed him, and who later would be part of a huge racketeering case, were Lil Don, Scudder, and Looney from Wicked Town, rivals of Ghost Mob. We talked about Wicked Town earlier in this video when we went through the murder of Troy from 4900, who was killed by Mokese from Wicked Town, who a year later was killed by 4900 TNG in retaliation. Hence, Wicked Town is one of the creators of TNG, acronym for Troy and Gerald. Wicked Town is a set of members claiming TVL, abbreviation for Traveling Vice Lords. Before delving into the federal racketeering case against Wicked Town, I'll briefly discuss another murder included in the case, that of Dan from TNG. However, before doing so, it's important to mention the killing of an LT member, which occurred on August 24, 2015, just 2 days after the murder of Mikey from TNG. The murder I want to talk about is that of Snooky Foe from Teen Mob LT, who was killed by TNG Ghost Mob on August 24, 2015. Snooky Foe was outside walking along with two of his friends in the 1100 block of North Cicero, which is considered BG World territory, rivals of Ghost Mob and allies of LT and Black Mob. Just like LT, BG World also borders Ghost Mob's territory. Anyways, around 6 p.m., two men, Bart and Rello from TNG Ghost Mob, walked up to Snooky Foe and the other two and opened fire, striking Snooky multiple times in the upper body. The two other men were also shot. One of them, a 26-year-old, was shot in the head and was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital in serious condition. The other man, a 42-year-old, was shot in the arm and was taken to Loyola University Medical Center in Maywood, where his condition was stabilized, authorities said. Both survived the attack. However, Snooky Foe, whose real name was William Carter, was taken to Stroger Hospital, where he died at 6:53 p.m. the next day at the age of 24. The two perpetrators, Bart and Rello from TNG Ghost Mob, were both charged with the murder and two attempted murders 2 years later, in January 2017. Both were already locked up when they got charged. Bart had been locked up since May 2016 for threatening a public official, and Rello had been locked up since November 2015 after being charged with another shooting during an armed robbery in West Suburban Oak Park. Both of them have numerous arrests in addition to this from the year for 2 years. From 2015 to 2017, they were arrested 9 times each. Pluto, Cody, and Zach were very close to Rello and Bart and are constantly wishing for their freedom. To this date, both are still locked up in Cook County after being denied bail and are currently awaiting trial. Now we come to the murder I was referring to before, the murder of Dan from TNG, who was also killed by members of Wicked Town, who was later indicted in a racketeering case by the FBI. On September 2nd, 2015, only 1 week after the murder of Snooky Foe, Dan from TNG, Ghost Mobb, was standing outside near his parked car outside his home in the 700 block of North Long when 2 men parked their SUV down the street at Long and Hurons. A shirtless man, who was in the front passenger seat, got out of the SUV and walked in the direction of Dan. While Dan had his back turned, the gunman, who had a red shirt wrapped around his head, fired several times at Dan, striking him multiple times. Once he fell to the ground, several witnesses saw the gunman come closer and stand over Dan before shooting him several more times. The gunman then fled with the other man, who had been waiting next to their parked vehicle. Dan, who lived on the same block, was shot in the chest and torso and was taken to West Suburban Medical Center in Oak Park, where he was pronounced dead after being shot 18 times. What's peculiar about this homicide is its aftermath and the individual initially apprehended in March 2016 but subsequently released. What makes this noteworthy is that the individual initially taken into custody was none other than Lil C from TNG Ghost Mobb, who tragically died in a car accident 3 years later alongside Spike Lee from TNG Ghost Mobb. The fact that Lil C was arrested for the murder and identified in reports as the one who fired 18 shots at Dan remains a mystery. My speculation, which is also the most plausible explanation for his arrest, is that Lil C was present with Dan when the crime occurred and likely fired back at the assailants. This scenario mirrors what often happens in similar cases, where the individual who returns fire bears full culpability. We've seen this happen, for instance, in the case of King Lil J when he was arrested for murder, among others. However, Lil C would later be released, and on November 1st, 2021, a federal indictment unsealed which charged 13 alleged leaders, members, and associates of the Wicked Town faction of the traveling Vice Lord street gang with participating in a criminal organization that murdered rivals and violently protected a drug-dealing operation on the west side of Chicago. The indictment alleges that the Wicked Town faction engaged in numerous acts of violence, including at least 19 murders, 19 attempted murders, several armed robberies, and assaults. The gang used threats and intimidation to prevent victims and witnesses from cooperating with law enforcement, the charges allege. Wicked Town members regularly promoted their violent enterprise on social media, posting comments, photos, and videos to proclaim membership in the gang, taunt rival gang members, and boast about murders and other acts of violence. The indictment states, the gang operated primarily in Chicago's Austin neighborhood, where members allegedly maintained trap houses to store firearms and illegal narcotics, including cocaine and heroin. During the course of the multi-year probe, law enforcement seized 46 firearms, approximately 1,000 rounds of ammunition, approximately 17 kilograms of cocaine, approximately 7 kilograms of heroin, and approximately 100 grams of crack cocaine. The charged were Donald Lee, also known as Lil Don or Pops, Deshaun Morgan, also known as Donk or Big Bro, Markel Russell, also known as P or Will Pinero, Darius Murphy, also known as Scudder, Torrance Benson, also known as Blackie, Davian Russell, also known as Huncho, Deshaun George, also known as D-Mac, Nashon Johnson, also known as Booty, Dante Dockett, also known as DT, Demon Brown, also known as Looney, Victor Turner, also known as Jubeen, Willie Gardley, also known as Flocka, and lastly, David Arrington, also known as Day Day. A total of 19 murders were encompassed within the racketeering charges, with the FBI identifying the perpetrators in each case. Looney and Scudder from Wicked Town were implicated in the murder of Dan from TNG, the same individuals involved in the killing of Mikey. While I didn't recognize the other victims listed, if you'd like a separate video focusing on Wicked Town, please let me know in the comments below. There's plenty of intriguing information to share, such as Donald Lee, also known as Lil Don, the leader of Wicked Town, being implicated as the perpetrator in 7 of the 19 murders. Additionally, Scudder was identified as the perpetrator in 7 of the killings, and was described by U.S. District Judge Thomas Durkin as the most violent, dangerous, and depraved defendant he had encountered, with the judge even questioning Scudder's humanity, stating, "I don't know if you have a soul." Now we enter the year 2016. Pluto had recently been released for involuntary manslaughter of Antoine Baker, dating back to 2012. 2016 was a violent year in Chicago, and the city saw the highest homicide rate in 19 years, with a whopping 762 murders and 4,331 wounded across the city, almost twice as much as the year before, 2015. This year, Pluto started to put in some major work and would contribute to the statistics. However, it wasn't long into the new year before he would get locked up yet again. But before we get to that, we need to talk about Teen Mobb, who lost a member just after 29 days into the new year. On January 29, 2016, Martis White, also known as Tice from Teen Mobb /LT, was gunned down in Black Mob territory. Again, not the same Black Mob as in Black Mob from Terror Town. Tice was standing outside in the 5100 block of West Division at 6:21 p.m. when someone walked up behind him and opened fire, according to Chicago police and the Cook County Medical Examiner's office. The shooter then ran away. Tice suffered multiple gunshot wounds to the back and was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital, where he was sadly pronounced dead 2 hours later. According to my sources, TNG, Ghost Mob, was behind the murder of Tice, and it would backfire 2 weeks later when allies of Teen Mobb, Black Mob, retaliated on TNG. As mentioned earlier, 2 weeks later the tide of the war shifted. TNG experienced the loss of a cherished member, a tragedy that deeply impacted Pluto and fueled his thirst for revenge. The murder I'm referring to is that of Big Glow from TNG. On February 16, 2016, around 9 a.m., Big Glow, who was also known as Fat Sean, entered a convenience store located in the 4900 block of West Division known as Black Mob territory to purchase a drink. Inside, he encountered another individual named Ikey Mikey from Black Mob, and they made eye contact. As Big Glow exited the store, he exchanged words with Ikey Mikey, who then followed him outside and opened fire from the store's doorway. Ikey Mikey fired at least 6 shots, hitting Big Glow, causing him to fall face down. While Big Glow was on the ground, Ikey Mikey robbed him before fleeing westbound on Division. What happened during those 30 minutes after the shooting is beyond evil. In a documentary about Chicago's gang violence, made by Unreported World, Big Glow's mother was interviewed and told the reporter how she found out that her son was dead. She stated she had heard about the shooting and called her son's phone, but he did not answer. However, 10 minutes later, she received a text message from Big Glow's phone, which Ikey Mikey had taken, where it said, "The buddy you looking for is dead. Ha ha ha. One up on us." "I knew at that point my baby was dead," she said. Big Glow, whose real name was Rashawn Gooden Jr., was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital, where he was pronounced dead 30 minutes after the shooting at the age of 22. At the shooting site, investigators discovered 6 .45 caliber shell casings, as detailed in court documents. The following day, a witness overheard Michael Dukes, known as Ikey Mikey, or Mad Mikey, confess to shooting Big Glow during a phone conversation. Subsequently, he attempted to sell or exchange a .45 caliber handgun to another witness. On April 29, 2016, 2 months after the murder, Ikey Mikey was arrested and charged with first-degree murder of Big Glow, and 12 days later, Cook County Circuit Judge Maria ordered him held on a $2.5 million bond. However, Ikey Mikey was not convicted of first-degree murder. Instead, he was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter and negligent homicide, which involve causing someone's death intentionally, but under circumstances that mitigate the killing from being considered murder. Voluntary manslaughter often occurs in the heat of passion. Negligent homicide, on the other hand, results from careless or negligent behavior that causes another person's death. Additionally, Ikey Mikey faced a charge of aggravated battery. In total, he received a 15-year prison sentence. Although his projected parole date was scheduled for June of last year, he has yet to be released. This delay is likely due to the aggravated battery charge involving an assault on a correctional officer or staff member. His expected release date is now set for June 22, 2025. After the murder of Big Glow, Pluto was out for revenge and blood. He was out sliding daily with various constellations of members from Ghost Mob. In the months that followed Big Glow's death, vengeance unfolded. However, in addition to Big Glow, TNG would lose another member. Like I have said earlier in the video, the violence on the west side is something I have never seen before. It was constantly back-to-back killings. Big Glow was 2 years older than Pluto and a few years older than Zach and Cody. He was the big homie who they locked up to, among other members. Cody used to serve for Big Glow back in 2015 when he was around 14 years old, so Big Glow meant a lot to them since he had taught them a lot. We start with the murder of a member from Teen Mob LT who was named Richard Thrasher, or more commonly known as Pt1. In the morning of February 18, 2016, at around 8:30 a.m., Pt1 was found with gunshot wounds in the head and upper body in the 1000 block of North Laverne. This block is literally at the border between LT's allies, BG World, and their rivals, TNG Ghost Mob. Nobody was arrested for this murder, but according to my sources, it was Ghost Mob, and it is also rumored that the shooter was Pluto 2 times. However, I can't say for sure because I've only heard it from 2 sources, so it's unconfirmed if he was really involved. However, after Pluto was killed on September 28, 2019, a relative of Pt1 uploaded a status on Facebook where he wrote, "I'll trade my life in for one conversation with Pretty right now, man." If this is true, this is Pluto's first alleged body, or second if you count Antoine Baker, but this was the first alleged body he caught by using a gun. Pluto was 19 years old, and it may seem late, but you have to remember that Pluto was locked up for a long time after he was charged with the murder of Antoine Baker in December 2012. In a side note in the story, on March 17, 2016, Lucas Spicer Jr. from WMG Sicko Mobb was shot and killed. Lucas was standing on a sidewalk in the 800 block of North St. Louis Avenue, Oskino gang territory, along with 2 other teenagers when a light-colored vehicle pulled up, and a gunman got out and opened fire on the group. Lucas was shot in the chest and was taken to Stroger Hospital, where he was pronounced dead 40 minutes after the shooting. An 18-year-old man, shot in the chest and neck, was also taken to Stroger in critical condition, police said. A 19-year-old man suffered a graze wound and was taken in good condition at Norwegian American Hospital. Fortunately, both survived. The reason why I tell you this is because Lucas, whose nickname was Baby T, was later adopted in the creation of BTBG, which is abbreviation for Baby T Blood Gang, which we have already talked about and will talk about more later in the story. Baby T was allegedly killed by snakes. Pluto from TNG 4900 has mocked Baby T, or Lil Luke as he was also called, on multiple occasions both in songs and on social media platforms. For example, in the song Location, featuring SGE Savage, Pluto rapped, "I get high when I'm smoking on Lucas." Two months after Pt1 from Teen Mobb LT was killed, TNG lost a member, 29-year-old Antonio White, also known as C-Tone. On May 3, 2016, C-Tone was sitting on a front porch together with one other friend in the 4900 block of West Monroe, which is Ella Gang territory. At around 1:52 p.m., 2 offenders walked up and opened fire towards C-Tone and his friend, who were both struck by gunfire. His friend, an 18-year-old man, was shot in the back and right leg and was taken in serious condition to Stroger Hospital, but luckily survived. C-Tone, however, he was hit twice in the chest and was sadly pronounced dead at the hospital 1 hour after the shooting took place. Officers were called again to the same block later that same day to disrupt gang activity based on a tip from the community. 3 guns were seized and 3 people taken into custody. Police said it was not immediately clear whether the arrests were connected to the earlier shooting, but stated that officers likely prevented another shooting. I don't know what gang killed him, but I have heard it was 4 corner hustlers. Four months after the murder of Pt1, Teen Mobb LT lost yet another member, Beans or Bino. Beans was killed on June 14, 2016, while standing outside on the sidewalk around 3:40 a.m. in the 4900 block of West Huron, which is territory of the CVL-MIVL mixed mafia. Suddenly, 2 males walked up, and one of them pulled a gun and started shooting at Beans, who got hit in the chest and right arm. Beans, whose real name was Antoine Randall, was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital where he was pronounced dead 2 hours after the shooting at the age of 35. The man who allegedly killed him is an individual named Renard Williams. Renard, also known as Nard or Oskino, was charged with the murder and was sentenced to 20 years in prison for second-degree murder. His projected parole date is scheduled for June 2026. Nard is TVL from LMG 500's Wicked Town and claims subsets of Wicked Town such as Rust World and Telemob. Rust, a member of Wicked Town who was killed in 2014, was also claiming LMG 500, same as Nard. LMG is a part of Sangang and Nard often slid with them when he was out of prison. Another interesting detail, the famous video where Rage from O-Block was beaten up in Cook County, which was posted all over the internet and news outlets, was Nard beating him up. At first I thought that Nard was related to Takia Holmes, the 11-year-old girl Rage allegedly killed, since Nard shares the same last name as her mother. However, Takia's mother stated on Facebook that she doesn't know Nard. Nard's reason for doing it was most likely due to the accusations that were being held against Rage. Another thing, it took several days of journalistic work to find information on Nard, what gang he belonged to, etc. I never struggled with the research as much as I did with this guy. But finally I found him through a girl in the comment section of the video of him beating up Rage. She defended him in the comment section after a person stated that Nard also was charged with murder, just like Rage. However, she claimed Nard to be wrongfully convicted. Now we have come to Pluto's second alleged body. This information I will share right now is unknown and has not been out on the internet before. On July 17, 2016, Pluto would allegedly kill a 19-year-old just 5 days before his own 19th birthday. The set he scored on is called MOF, who are a gang composed of members who claim 4CH and are located off Leverne and Ferdinand. They are allies of both Teen Mob, LT, and Black Mob among others, but also Sniper Gang, SMG, and NMBM, New Money Black Mob. They are longtime rivals of Ghost Mob as well as their neighbors Wicked Town. At around 8:45 p.m., the 19-year-old, who was called Trigga, was driving in the 4900 block of West Augusta, which is right at the border of another 4CH set, BG World, and their neighbors and longtime rivals of Ghost Mob. Suddenly, shots rang out, which struck Trigga 3 times in the shoulder and side. Trigga, whose real name was Lloyd Daniel, was taken to Stroger Hospital where he tragically died about 4 hours after the shooting, according to the police. According to my sources, it was Pluto who pulled the trigger. However, it's quite unknown how exactly the murder unfolded. Either Pluto was also in a car and pulled up next to Trigga, or they were standing outside and flipped his car. Trigga was known as a moneymaker in the hood, and if you check his Facebook page, it is confirmed. He often posted pictures of money and clothes. Trigga was also known for being a menace with the hands. He was a good fighter and got into fights every week. Even though Trigga used to post up in MOF territory most of the time, he also claimed NMBM, a set composed of members who claim UVL, abbreviation for Unknown Vice Lord. And as I said earlier, MOF are heavily clicked up with NMBM, New Money Black Mob, and Black Mob, who were behind the murder of Big Glow. Trigga was also a part-time rapper. He has a few songs on YouTube, one called Hate on Me, and another called My Squad, both featuring J Flex from MOF. It's amateurish songs with bad quality, but it was still interesting to watch and listen to. An interesting detail surrounding the murder of Trigga is that only an hour before the murder, 2 people were shot in MOF territory, where one of the people died. The person who died was Loso, a member of Sane Gang, LMG, who are allies with Moff. Loso also claimed MOF according to information, and it makes me wonder if that murder was connected to the murder of Trigga. Loso was shot along with one other individual while sitting in an SUV in the 500 block of North Levering. Once officers arrived at the scene, 2 men were found wounded in the SUV, both 20 years old. One of the people, Loso, had been shot in the head, and his friend had been shot in the leg. Loso unfortunately did not survive and was pronounced dead at almost exactly the same time that Trigga was shot, which was around 8:30 p.m. According to police, the driver of the SUV ran away. There is a possibility that TNG was also involved in the murder of Loso from LMG, and that Trigga slid that very same evening to get revenge but got killed instead. However, I have not had this theory confirmed, so I cannot say if it is true or false. Regardless, they must be connected somehow. It can't be a coincidence. Another theory is that Pluto was also involved in the murder of Loso, and that Trigga followed them back, but was instead killed himself. It wouldn't be the first time in Chicago's history that has happened. Loso, whose real name was Carlos Harding, had a record of 61 arrests and 20 convictions at the age of 20. Arrest was made in the murder of Loso, and I tried getting them but was denied due to personal integrity. After Pluto was killed on September 28, 2019, loved ones of Trigga confirmed that Pluto was his killer. One cousin in particular wrote several posts where she disrespected Pluto. Among other things, she wrote, "I'm gonna keep talking shot about Pluto. That made a lot of people's families cry. Now it's his family's turn. That 2X," followed by a bunch of laughing emojis. In another post, she wrote, "Today is a good day. Long live Lloyd, long live Chief Young Heavy. Now beat his gas up there." Chief Young Heavy was another relative of hers who Pluto killed in November 2018, which we will come to later in the story. She also stated that she is going to celebrate this day. Jono from OF also posted after Pluto was killed. He wrote, "Lloyd really used to terrorize people, gun or no gun. Rest up Broski." A few UVL members from NMBM and DMG also honored Trigga on this day. Trigga was a very beloved member from his hood. On July 28, 2016, Pluto would get arrested for attempted murder after shooting a 17-year-old boy in the arm in the 1800 block of South Hamlin Avenue. The 17-year-old boy was walking north when Pluto came out of a gangway firing shots. He was taken to the Mount Sinai Hospital in good condition. Once again, Pluto was locked up for a serious crime and was locked up in Cook County for a little more than 2 years awaiting trial, which started on April 30th, 2018. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment what you thought. This was the first part. Part 2 will be released soon. Thank you.